I'm here with Jarrod Parks, who's a course developer at Udacity. Jarrod, thanks so much for talking to us today.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to talk a little bit about student motivation in classes and how technology can help. So Jarrod, I'll start by asking, what kind of shaped you as far as motivation is concerned when you were a learner in school? So what were your experiences with the role of motivation in education?
Right. I had a kind of a lucky situation. I'm a twin, so for me, a lot of my motivation, I think, was always driven out of that natural sense of competition that I had with my twin brother James. But from more of like what the school was providing for me, I think I was always motivated by doing well. It was always stressed that you want to do well, so I tried to get to the top. And for me, that seemed to be enough, at least to get me through grade school. And then as learning got deeper and the topics got more difficult, I had to kind of dig, I think, more inside of myself to find the time and give the commitment to the topics that you had to be successful.
I think you're echoing something really important also is that, and there's actually research that backs this up, is that early in education, students might adopt a real focus on some of those external motivators. And it sounds like you're commenting on that early on it was about doing well overall according to, I'm guessing, what was your definition of doing well back then? Do you remember?
It was very much get A's in class. I mean, it was, my parents made it known to my brother and I at a very early age that we had to do well in order to be able to get to college. And so that for me was a goal from, I don't know, 5th grade and on, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think there's research that confirms that early on many students adopt this kind of external mindset about learning, which isn't inherently a bad thing because there are powerful external motivators out in the world, and there are very important reasons to learn well and do well. But what about the tension between, I think you mentioned this as far as later in your career, the tension between being motivated by something out in the world and being motivated by something more internal to yourself?
I think that started to arise when I got to points where I started to question, were the grades that I was getting in class and receiving truly reflective of how I felt I was learning, or how I felt like just self-worth and value. Like I feel like I'm trying hard, but I don't know if I want to commit the amount of time it takes to get what is considered an A, a high mark in this class, whereas I feel like I'm still learning effectively and this is just added pressure. And so I think intrinsically, in and of myself, I started to think about, why am I learning? Why do I want to learn? Am I actually having fun doing this? And then I started to go after and learn and look at topics that excited me, not just because somebody told me this is what I should be interested in, but because I chose them for myself.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're commenting on that. I think a lot of students experience that same thing, where they find something that they're very passionate about and they end up pursuing it. But it seems like it would be really great if we could actually bring that into the classroom. At least in my opinion, there's nothing inherent about the classroom that means students can't be internally motivated by something a teacher gives them. It's, that fact that I got it from a teacher doesn't make it so that I'm never going to be personally interested in it. It's just something happens, I think, in school that often prevents that from arising. So do you have any thoughts on, either from your personal experience or what we as educational technology designers could do to try and create that more personal motivation even when we're designing well-formed interventions?
I think you have to keep adaptivity at one of the highest priorities. I think the classroom in a lot of ways has for a lot of people been very rigid. And because of that, when they find something that may be interesting, maybe they feel silenced or they don't feel like they can go and explore this topic and it's going to help them in getting higher or finishing school or whatever. And so being able to identify when students have something that they're very interested in and then allowing them to pursue that and still somehow maybe tie it back to whatever the universal messages of this class or the learning points is something that I think would be very beneficial.
So you're saying it'd be good to have a class where students can kind of be given a bunch of topics to explore and choose which topics they'd like to explore and when and how?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as long as they're, I think, dense enough and they're ones that actually would merit, a good amount of work, and you can make those calls as an educator, then yeah, that would be a great type of class. Those are the kind of classes I enjoyed.
Good. So Jarrod would enjoy this class. So you don't know this, but that's exactly the motivating principle behind the design of this class. Is we've given students a library of information, such as this interview, to explore and kind of find what's most interesting and pertinent to them.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So, but what about the role of technology in all this? It seems like everything we've talked about so far is kind of general to education in the classroom as a whole. What can technology do specifically to help us with this, facilitating students' personal motivation in these topics?
So one thing I think about is how technology nowadays has access to so much information. And because they have access to that information, when students are being, when we're collecting responses from students and we're analyzing their feedback, their answers or whatever, we can look at those things and make choices about, or give them recommendations about things that they may become interested in. So the technology is what would allow us to adapt where it may be more difficult in a traditional classroom for a professor to give that individual attention to each student. I think that's something that technology could definitely do.
I agree. I think that technology also has the benefit of making a lot of these resources always very easily available. That in the past it was a case of if I wanted to structure a class where students can choose their own topic, I could say today in class you're going to go to the library, find an encyclopedia, find a book, and research it yourself. But that means that students have 50 minutes one day to do all the research and find their own direction, which just isn't really enough time. But now we can say, you have all semester, you have the internet, you have as much time as you're willing to invest. You can go any direction you want without ever leaving your office.
Right.
So I think that's really powerful to making that available. Do you have any thoughts on the role of artificial intelligence in this? I don't know if you have any experience with how AI can kind of help personalize this. And if you don't, I'll comment on it. But
I don't have any deep experience, but I think AI systems can be the ones responsible for finding those things that, and making those recommendations for students. I think that might be a good application.
Yeah, a friend of mine is actually working on a project kind of like that. That's a digital assistant for research like this, that if you're working on something, it can actually connect you out to ongoing research in the field or similar ideas, or just help you kind of build a broader knowledge of what you're researching without having to find everything on your own. Mm-hmm. So, do you have any final thoughts for our students who might be worried about facilitating motivation in the technological devices that they build?
Yes, my recommendation is for any roadblocks that you ever run into from a motivation standpoint is to have friends, have people around you that support you. I think every time that I reached one of those blocks in my life, that's what helped pull me through more than anything else.
That actually speaks, I think, to something we've commented elsewhere in this class on as well, is that when we're building technology, we need to be able to facilitate interaction among students. It's very tempting to treat my system as the student and whatever I'm building. But in reality, it should be the student, their friends, their teachers, their mentors, things like that, and my device, which is facilitating interaction amongst all of them.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, it's almost like the intrinsic motivation that grows out of us as well as the extrinsic motivators. I think it's driven by people. It's a people-based thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Absolutely.
And thanks y'all for watching.